All right, traders, welcome to your end of day video. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Thursday, November 14th. So, one more day to the week. It's been a really tight range for the indices this week. So, we'll go over a couple of the moves today and some of the observations for the day. But overall, it's been basically a digestion type move all week long, right? We've had what 5 weeks of gains, and kind of it's been the same thing basically every day. I'll talk about Nvidia and Applied Materials that reported after hours, but we are seeing these like at the end of the day kind of moves. Very similar to what I think yesterday, right? Right? Here was yesterday, kind of at the end of the day, where we were lower. Actually, yesterday all day we kind of moved back. Headline brought almost the same exact move, by the way. Some type of headline brought us down, realized it wasn't that big of a deal, moved back up. Same thing, headline brought us down, realized it wasn't that big of a deal, so back up. So where are we again on the 20-day moving average? I'm chuckling to myself because I cannot believe we are still holding the 5 period moving average, right? So there's nothing really telling us negative here. We're chopping around almost every day this week. Let's see what is SPY up for this week. What has that performed? Let me just bring up another screen here. SPY from last Friday was 308.94. Whew, we haven't moved at all. So that's 1108.94, 2019. Sorry, I'm just on a different screen here. Yeah, we've moved like 20 basis points. It's been, so again, a little bit higher. Um, but crazy range. And if you look at the closes every day, it's been one of these situations where I was saying earlier in the trading room that you want to be careful on days like this where we've kind of stopped moving, because if you're trading options, now of course you could trade anything you want. You could sit on your hands, as I've been saying and I've been trying to do the last few days. But you have to realize when there's good opportunities in the market, opportunities to leverage and to kind of play maybe even some short-term options. But right now, unless you're doing a heck of a job scalping, it's difficult when the market is doing this, right? It's actually, in my opinion, and the video is for information purposes only, not giving out any recommendations or advice, but in my opinion, it's like better to be just sitting on your hands rather than trying to scalp, because you may hit that one or two, get those one or two winners in this market, but the market just doesn't have any momentum to it. So especially like if you're timing the market, congratulations to you. But it's what we do know is it's harder. It's a harder environment when the market's not moving, right? No matter what, if you're trading short-term options, the clock is always ticking against you, right? You have what's called theta decay. That you know, so if you hold the stock and it doesn't move, and you're holding short-term options, maybe this week or next week, and the stock doesn't move, regardless, forget about if it goes down, you're going to lose based on that because of the time decay, which is the greatest when you're dealing with short-term options. So, if you take a look at the and here just kind of breaks it down for you a little bit. Nasdaq, even though the Nasdaq came back to only finish down, Q's finished down just about 10 basis points. SPY's finished up about the opposite, up about 15 basis points. But you can see, look at the declining numbers versus the advancing. So again, we continue to see that market breadth come in. Which has been doing this all week long, where more names are declining than going up. Although it was different on the S&P side, 299 advancers versus 204. You could see again more names in the Nasdaq making new lows than new highs. So again, it's feeling like even though the market is kind of chopping up here, it's been losing market breadth all week long, right? That's known as a divergence. So you want to be a little bit careful of that. Again, it doesn't. There's no guarantees. It doesn't mean that we kind of go lower, because certainly every time you could see these big tails, it just shows that there is buying going on any of these dips that we're seeing, right? It just shows that there's still a thirst for equities right now, but the market is losing breadth. So that has to flip around. That could just take, I think I said this yesterday too, it could just basically take one day for that to change. But right now, it's continuing to lose a little bit of market breadth, and you know, there's nothing horrible, about that in the short term. But you just have to be careful if that continues, right? Because it's been now almost every day this week, we've seen more decliners than advancers, especially in Nasdaq. All right, so keep that in mind. So a couple names that reported after the close. Nvidia had good numbers. They brought in their guidance. So we went over this one in the room. I didn't play this one at all. I have a little bit of a JD position on, which I thought JD reported this morning, but clearly I was wrong with that. But I still have my position on. But I didn't think that they were going to just throw guidance, have really strong guidance, and have numbers that were going to be blockbuster numbers. Their numbers were very good. 3 billion versus 291. That was sales. That's the top line. Bottom line 178 versus 155. And here was the stinker, was that the revenue, fourth quarter revenue will be 295 plus or minus 2%. 3.07. So that's bringing in guidance similar to what who did that yesterday? Cisco, right? Cisco had good numbers, and they completely lowballed their number based on political stuff that they said, and trade wars and so forth. The other name that did very well, I mean, talk about strong numbers and strong guidance. Applied Materials, whew, uh, their numbers were strong, and look at what they said. First quarter, where's the number that I'm looking for? That one doesn't look like it's that great. Here it is. Sees first quarter adjusted EPS 87 to 95, estimated 75 cents. That's huge. And then also their first quarter net sales they're seeing in the range of 495. So that ups their guidance. So they seem to be executing really well. My thought was on Nvidia. By the way, I didn't trade anything. My thought was to sell a call spread, but there just wasn't enough to collect. The implied move, market maker move, gets you up was about 6.2%, which gets you up to about 222. So this was a case that looked like it would have been right if it ends up here tomorrow, to maybe sell a little bit of premium. But like I said, I looked at a 217, 222 and a half, 217 and a half, 222 and a half call spread to sell, and you could only collect about $1.40. And I wasn't willing to go closer because I was thinking it would be odds are more bullish than anything else. But in any event, all these 13F filings come out. The only one that I really pay attention to is Buffett, because he's the man. The rest kind of just tell. Maybe Appaloosa I thought was interesting too. They added to a couple names like Boeing, I think. I think Baba too. But all these things that they happened in the past. So it's kind of like, okay, it's interesting. Like, when you're out having a drink, having a beer, talking about what funds increase their holdings. But all this stuff happened in the past. So don't get sucked up in that. Again, the one thing that I think is interesting. I mean, you could see the reaction of Restoration Hardware. They announced that I think they have about a little more than 1 million shares. So new position for them. Something again. Buffett is a different story, right? When he goes long. And if you didn't see, like, I thought that this was really interesting. I know he's been, like, for whatever reason, been taking criticism, but look at the position that he has in Apple. That's his biggest position. It makes up 26% of his fund holdings. I mean, that's insane. And he trimmed this a little bit just by point 0.3, which is not a lot, but he's got 248 million shares. And of course, you look at what Apple's done. I mean, it's one of the best performing stocks. I mean, he's crushed it with that position. I would be. Could you imagine holding 248 million shares of one stock and not being nervous? I guess when you have that much money, it kind of helps to not be nervous. But man, oh man, I was actually looking at this stock today because I went on Bloomberg. What, about 3 weeks ago? We caught this whole move. I have just stock left on of Berkshire, but I'm thinking about adding back. This was a really nice winner in the trading room, but it's kind of coming in here, and you can see it put in a nice hammer bar right around the 20-day moving average. So I think this thing continues. If we look at the weekly chart, It's so close to breaking out. So kind of an inside week after a couple big weeks of moves. I think I'm ready to go long Berkshire again. So what did I trade today? Well, I got smoked in Kraft Heinz today. I was kind of trying to get out of the hole of P&L hole today. This thing went down like 8-7% today. So this is what happens when you have short-term calls. Something like this happens. Goldman downgraded it. I'm not completely blaming them. I mean, if it would have ended up or basically closed where it opened today, would not have been that big of a deal. But if you're holding short-term options, you're basically, you've got a really short-term bet, and you have to be comfortable with that. Smartly, I did take a profit target yesterday, so I took some of the position off yesterday. And again, dealing with short-term options, you have to take, in my opinion, you have to take targets. Something like this could happen. A broker could downgrade the stock, and all that premium is gone. So it's kind of what my story was today. I battled back, almost finished unched in terms of P&L on the day, um, but I kicked around some shop calls today, made a little bit of money in that. I'll go over this new swing position in LH, and I traded a little bit of Boeing today. So Boeing actually, so again, a little bit of day trading, kicking around some positions because again, I personally don't want to really add a lot of risk up here. I want to wait for till the market comes to me a little bit. But LH, this was wow, nice close. So let's see, did this close above value? There you go. Got the signal. So I actually went out on a limb and put this position on early. I was able to take a target, but this is a name that we saw. This was one of the member watch list names this weekend. Has seen a whole hell of a lot of call positioning a couple months out in January. And so sometimes the option action, the option activity, just kind of gives you a trade idea, right? Again, I don't know what they're doing with that position. They could have that, they could have substituted and got out of stock and into options. They could be hedging it. Who knows, right? But the option activity kind of drew my eyes to the name, and it just closed above value. So I did take one target in it, but I've got the remaining position, and we'll hope this name can get going here. But I like this name as well. Other names that we saw some option activity in, AMD basically all day today. If we go to our option activity channel, there wasn't too many things that really caught my eye. This GNTX, it's probably, if you like option activity, that was probably the trade. This chart actually looks very good. Let's see where this thing closed on the day. Nice break. This thing is breaking out, right? Yeah, this thing is breaking out. And sorry, let me just reset this. Let's go to the daily chart. But notice that you get a nice upward swing and a retest of top of value, 20-day moving average, hold, and a nice bullish engulfing. So again, something that like not on my radar, but that's a hell of a nice. That is a really nice looking bullish engulfing. Other names that we talked about, I was messing around here. Other names that with the restoration hardware. I mentioned today, keep an eye on bonds, gold, silver today. But I think the names that we talked about today did pretty well. These were my watch list names. Google did very well until they, of course, that's the risk with these FANG stocks right now is regulation. And I think as soon as these names start to rally a little bit, it almost seems like manipulative a little bit. Whenever these names start to really move to the upside, someone like a regulator or regulation headline comes out about them, and that brings the stock in. So I think that's the risk with these FANG stocks is that as soon as they start to rally and fire off a buy signal, which I thought Google was doing, into today, nice little pullback, but you have to be so careful with these FANG stocks because as soon as they start to go, there's a regulation headline and the stock drops on it. But for the most part, I think Shop was the one that I was focusing because I started a position yesterday. Didn't do a whole lot except for in the morning. Where did this thing close today? I'm still long this one, and then we'll wrap up the video. I mean, it's going to have to get over this hump, right? It kind of failed here, so I would like to see this thing get to the top of value, which is 330. So we'll see. All right, guys, thanks for watching today's video. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.